Anthony Dari, Peninsula Podcast. I'm here with Connor Sheffield. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing all right. How are you doing?
Thank you for having you on. It's been a little while since we've been back on. We always promise for our active guests that have lots going on, we try to bring them in periodically because so much can change within a year. Hairstyles, facial hair, lots of different things can progress. What have you
It
been up
all
to?
it all migrated up here down here.
Yeah, same thing happened with your dad. I don't know if his was as creative as yours was, but that'd be fun. So anyway, it's good to have you back, and I want to kind of just dive right in. So last time you were here, I knew you had a lot going on. Tell us some of the big things that have changed. You had a race season in between last time you were here, right? I think we were like pre-race season last time.
Yeah, we were. Oh my God, when was it that I came in? I was just trying to remember.
January
last year. Yeah, so it was a little bit before on the high side really like took off. That is getting pretty big. It was just before race season. Last season was it was a little tough. We didn't get out there as much as I would have liked to, but I look forward to getting out there a little bit more. But I did also even though it was very difficult, I did get my first 600 win.
That's
So
huge.
that was that was awesome. It was a very like physically taxing night, but it was just the most memorable racing thing that I have.
So when you say 600, what does that mean? I'm sure that's some kind of classification or type of race.
Yeah, so that's the cars that we drive, 600 cc's. They're the micro sprints that you'll see the pictures of me in.
That's awesome. And that race that you won, where was that at?
That was at Linda Speedway up in Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania. That had to be a huge night for you, right?
Oh yeah, I still think about that all the time. That was awesome.
That's awesome. I'm excited for you to maybe get a couple more of them under your belt this upcoming season. So so racing's been going well, I assume.
Oh yeah.
And on the high side, tell us a little about that because I don't think we really dove into that too much last time you were on.
Right, so that's this like kind of clothing company that I've started up. We're still pumping out a lot of designs, a lot of new stuff, pretty frequently. It's a good way to kind of merge two things that I'm very passionate about, which is cannabis as medicine and racing. Which so this is something that I've put out a lot, something that I really like about on the high side, something that I'm very happy that I even thought about. Was that a portion of our proceeds with the company go towards funding medical cannabis research, and that's kind of ties into a foundation that we got started over the last year as well since we talked, the Connor Sheffield Foundation, which is kind of got a focus on researching with mental health related issues.
So we'll just bebop all around. Let's go back to the foundation because that's something that's new that started. You mentioned that there's a focus around mental health, and you also mentioned doing some work with some local universities, right? Like in Johns Hopkins.
Right.
And I find that that's really important for a lot of different reasons. First off, we lack significant research on mental health issues in general. We lack even more research when it comes to mental health and how cannabis can be a tool for that. Someone who's personally suffers from depression and anxiety and finds such alleviation from cannabis, I find it so important that we finally start getting folks like that are more leaders in traditional healthcare focus on what alternative medicine can provide. So that's awesome. I've also seen the team that you've put together for this foundation. It's incredibly impressive. So I see Nurse Laura on there, Dr.
Strickland.
Paloma, Dr. Strickland. Who else? It's just those are the main medical folks, right?
Yeah, that's the main ones we got on there.
And Dr. Paloma has made her her stamp in Maryland for a long time through the Vario Health and now Green Goods. And I think I saw you guys just celebrating. They took over the old Charm City Medicus across from, is that Golden Ring Mall it's across from?
Yep.
Yeah. So I'm glad that was a dispensary that started off doing really well and had a huge patient base and then kind of tinkered off a little bit. So I'm glad to see some good folks back at the helm of that.
It's a great place too. We were just down there. It's a cute little place.
Yeah, it is a great. It was a good looking dispensary before, and those guys do things well.
Everybody there is super friendly too. Like they really did a good job. Taking over the place.
Yeah, they have a good team.
Oh yeah.
Around them. And of course, Nurse Laura has been working on our Peninsula Holistics team for over 4 years now. She works with dispensaries on the Western Shore and doctors' office and providers' offices, and getting them matched up with our CBD products. So we know how she operates and the ties that she has. She comes from a long background in medicine, both on the patient side, but then also on the operations and the internal side. And her understanding of how hospitals work behind the scenes, I think, is really helpful for your foundation. I'm really happy to see her applying her previous experience to such a good cause with you guys. So foundations are awesome in their mission, and everyone gets super excited. But without funding and without resources, foundations kind of are limited in what they can do. So I know that you guys have this will drop in a couple of days. So I know that you guys have a big event coming up at Full Tilt Brewery.
Oh yeah,
On March 9th for the foundation.
that'll be huge.
And that will be huge. That should drive a lot of dollars, and also I bet it'll drive a lot of good networking and relationships. I know some of the folks that'll be attending there. And I know that it'll be a hit. And when you are able to bring all those folks together at one time, one place, doesn't happen very often. It's only for a foundational event or something like that. So those tickets how do people find those tickets? Is it Connor's Foundation? How do?
Well, you can go on the Facebook page, or you could go on the website, ConnorsSheffieldFoundation.com.
So you can find those tickets at the website, ConnorsSheffieldFoundation.com, or just the Facebook page, right?
Correct.
Cool. I'm sure there's a couple left. I know they'll probably sell out before the event starts, but that'll be good. And I'm sure you guys will have some other events to raise some money. How do you guys, besides those events, is there other ways that you guys are actually seeking donations, or is it just private funding?
So we actually just got a donations button set up on our Facebook page. If you go to our Connor Sheffield Foundation Facebook page, where you it's literally, you'll see it. It's a big blue donate button. We just got to set that up. It's super sick. I'm really happy that we were actually I feel like it kind of legitimizes our cause a little bit more, kind of makes us feel like a little bit more real, kind of gives people more of a reason to really see this as like a real thing
entity,
to,
right?
yeah, because we really are seeking a lot of like answers with how can medical cannabis, especially right now, how can medical cannabis help with things like like mental health, especially in the PTSD, anxiety, depression areas, which all of which are things that I personally suffer with these things.
Right.
So that's kind of a main thing right now, but it's just it feels really cool to be able to like pull up our Facebook page and see that donate button. It's awesome.
About it's a lot. Oftentimes, it's always about the legitimization of cannabis, right? And a lot of people talk about it. A lot of people feel the need to do that in different ways. Some people pound on their chest. Some people march. Some people light up joints in D.C. Some people write letters. There's lots of different ways that you can advocate for this. But I seem to find that honey and sugar and carrots are the way that I try to approach this, and not so much the stick, not so much through condemnation, not through much saying, how could you guys not understand that this is such an awesome tool? And one of the events that's held twice a year, I think it does a good job of legitimizing cannabis and does it in a scientific and professional way, are the Cannabis Science Conferences that Josh Crossing puts on, which in the news today, I actually just saw that they went through an acquisition with MJF, and it looks like Josh will be taking on a new role as director of cannabis events, so kudos to him. But I got to watch some clips from your presentation there, and you did a great job of telling your story. Tell me a little bit about that conference and your speaking position and kind of what that meant to you.
Well, first off, before that, I want to say that I think it's important to be able to incorporate both the kind of chest beating. We should fight for this. This is our medicine. This is this should be a thing. I think it's important to be able to incorporate that into the things like your foundations and your science conferences, because I think a lot of the time people really. We're still living in an age that I think a lot of people are really not realizing the past few years specifically, that cannabis is still as stigmatized as it was in say 10, 20 years ago. It's really not that much different, even though it kind of feels like it because states are legalizing. So I think it's important to be able to incorporate and say fight for this. Like, we really need this legalized. Go to your delegates, go to your senators, go to your local politicians, and really fight and advocate. Like, don't give that up for just conferences and stuff. You have to be able to incorporate all that at the same time. That's what I'm trying to do. That's what I want to do. But I think being able to go to these conferences has also given me a very big voice, and that's why I'm excited to go to the conference in California this coming May, as long as they don't reschedule it again. That'll be a lot of fun. But yeah, no. So when I went in September on my birthday, that was a very. It gave me a little bit more experience, I'd say. I hadn't spoken in front of a big crowd like that in a little while because COVID and all that. And it is like I said, it's just important to be able to get your voice out there and really just fight like that. It's what I look forward to keep doing throughout the coming few years. I don't see any sign of stopping doing that.
Sure. So we talk about the foundation and the work that you're doing in that piece, but then there's also Connor's Courage. And that really is more of the advocating, right?
Yeah.
That really is working with delegates. So explain some of the work that you're doing on that end, both in Maryland and then more maybe on a broader scale.
So a couple of weeks ago, we had a call with Chairman Pendergrass, I believe is her name. I didn't want to mess that up. And we're right now looking to fight for a bill that would see legalization for medical cannabis use for patients in hospital. Which is going to be a very huge thing for people like people like me who literally I wake up in the morning in a lot of nausea, a lot of pain, unbearable some mornings, you know what I mean? And unfortunately, we came into it just a little bit too late for this year. So I think coming next year we're gonna be really fighting and going down to Annapolis for that and just trying to get done what we can.
Yeah,
there was a law, I'm sure you know about this, there was a law passed in California with kind of the same things to it. We want to try to get some inspiration off of that bill and mainly try to translate that into however we can get it here. Just really any way of getting it is what we're fighting for.
Yeah, it's so important to not discontinue a medication to a patient that's working successfully because they need to be within the term of a hospital.
It's medicine, no matter what. It doesn't matter. Same thing with the school. I
actually had a very frank conversation in a public setting with a former, he's no longer the CEO of a local hospital. Mm-hmm. And I brought up this challenge to him, and he very tongue-in-cheek tried to make a joke and said, well, we have a no-smoking policy at the hospital.
Well.
And I said, first off, that's unfair because I just went over the 12 methods of administration you can use. I was like, but more importantly, what happens if you have an epileptic patient who's 9 years old and she's playing at the beach and she breaks her ankle and destroys it, compound fracture? Are you not going to give her CBD or cannabis treatment and let her start having seizures at your hospital?
Especially when it's the only thing that is known to help that patient.
Yeah. What lawsuit are you willing to face, and what are you willing to put a patient through before you acknowledge that you have patients that are dependent upon this, and this is not just something that is being pushed under the rug as a fun time in the form of a medicine?
That happens. You know that happens. That's it's a real thing that it does happen in a lot of these states where this isn't a thing.
You guys know Riley, right? Mm-hmm. And following some of her challenges and understanding, what her mom had to do at certain times to make sure that she got her medicine is crazy. And Riley's law is the law in Delaware that allows her to get medication in schools, and they fought very hard for that. And it's you bring up a good point in the fact that we talk about the stigma of cannabis and the fact that at dinner tables, you would almost feel like everything is fixed and that there's no issues anymore, and that hey, recreation's coming and you guys will be able to use banks soon. You guys will be able all these problems will be solved. But in the reality is
there's still going to be issues all along the road, no matter what. There will always be.
The federal government doesn't show any signs of moving quickly towards a federal plan, and as long as that federal dynamic lays, it's going to make things like insurance company participation, employer participation, all these different challenges that much greater to handle because you can't have a nationwide consistent platform. So,
that's why I'm when I think about this kind of stuff, as much as I want to see things like legalization happen like immediately and across the nation, you know, have all this stigma broken. It's like you got to be realistic about it. Like nothing is going to happen overnight. It will take a long time before something like this happens. It'll be out of a lot of people's lifetimes. You know what I mean? It could be out of mine. For all I know, I would, as much as I would hate that, it's kind of like just like you got to be realistic about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I think we are getting closer. We are like actually breaking ground, and we're getting people to listen, and that's at least the very first step in all of this, is at least getting people to hear our voice.
It's happening at a state level right now, and what I think you're seeing is, I think the South is like kind of the last unlocked territory.
Oh yeah.
You got Mississippi, Alabama right on the cusp, North Carolina, South Carolina right on the cusp. You get 4 red states like that to flip over, and then all
That
of a
could
sudden,
change the dynamics. Places like the Midwest and like
it does. What happens is it's all done by interest, right? And all of a sudden, the interest right now in the southern states they're not interested in cannabis. They don't care what happens. They're not really interested in playing it ball. But all of a sudden, now it comes to their state, and maybe I want an ownership stake. And all of a sudden, these folks that are kind of in the positions of power now have a care about cannabis. And all of a sudden, something like a safe banking bill or a descheduling bill seems realistic. In my mind, you know, you're 3 to 4 years away from that, but that's in our lifetimes.
Oh yeah. It's like, it's just the thing is that to a lot of politicians in today's age, and I guess at today's age, it's always been like this, is that it's not an issue unless it's like an issue. That's why I think the problem of we need to get more people out there and talking about this instead of and I think posting about it and you know, doing that kind of sharing is a great thing. Like constant, you know, keep posting stuff, keep sharing stuff on social media, but also like get out there and fight. You know what I mean? Like the more of, you know, people there are that are actually physically going out to places and speaking to not only, you know, your politicians, but like actually just like getting together and having rallies and doing what we're doing on March 9th at Full Tilt is stuff like that is really the only way that you can get a network of support and, you know, get people together. It's really it's what you have to do.
An event like that's a good event to invite your local delegate out, to invite your local congressperson, because, you know, when they come out to an event like that and they see
they'll see people that are they'll see the professionals, they'll see the people that are involved in all this stuff. They'll get a chance to like actually talk to them. They'll get a chance to see how this kind of bill will actually help people. They'll get to meet the patients that it's affecting. It's an incredibly necessary thing, and it's something that I want to do more of these. You know what I mean? Like I really have a lot of faith in this.
No, I do too, and you're being a good ambassador, and this is how things get normalized and progress. So kudos to you. So let's start looking towards the forward. Tell me about this upcoming race season. What do we got going on? Are you still racing the same size car?
Yeah.
Will you be in that car for forever? Is that like your forever size, or like is there a hope to move to different divisions, or how's that work?
I think I would like to test out some other things maybe in the future. No guarantees or promises. I would like to. I'd certainly like to. But for now, I think for the foreseeable future, we're going to be sticking with the 600s. It's definitely become a favorite of mine. It's just very fun. And I love all the tracks that I get to go to. You know, there's tracks everywhere for these kinds of cars. There's not really like it feels like an infinite number of tracks. It really doesn't feel like that with a lot of other kinds of race cars. It really feels like there's a huge community here. We'll be going all over again. I think mostly we're going to Bridgeport in New Jersey and Linda's in Pennsylvania, which is kind of where we stuck last year. But I think maybe mostly Bridgeport this year.
My aunt lives so close to Bridgeport, you can hear them on Friday and Saturday night sometimes.
Yeah, I remember. I think you said something about that last time.
She lives in Gibbstown or Paulsboro.
We have actually we're getting billboards, like big billboards built on the high side there. Yeah, I'm really excited about that. That's gonna be sick.
So you mentioned that we were gonna tease it, but where so on the high side is doing well. You're in a couple stores now. How many stores are you guys in now?
I think we're in 4.
That's awesome.
4 stores.
And you got some billboards coming. So where are they gonna be going?
So those billboards, yeah, like I said, they're gonna be at Bridgeport. It's gonna be a big one. I'm very excited to see that. We'll get pictures posted of that as soon as they're there, and of course you can go to the track and see them yourself.
That's awesome.
Show some support to the your local track and some of the drivers.
Now, that place is like home to you because it's where you race. It's like your home track, I assume, kind of deal.
Yeah.
Do you guys, like with the foundation and stuff, do you guys do things outside of Maryland? Like, is it your goal to try and take Nurse Laura and Dr. Paloma and into these other states, like New Jersey?
It's something that that hasn't come up in discussion too much, but it's something that I've at the very least thought about a lot. Like, I really do want to take this stuff to the national level. Like, I want to go around the country. I want to be able to speak in front of people. I want to be able to like I said, make that support system bigger. You know what I mean? I mean, we can't take the whole country, just Maryland.
No.
We have to really, like I said, like I've been saying this whole time, like we have to like really get out there and fight and talk to people. It's the only way.
For me, it's my focus really is like on the Mid-Atlantic region. Like I see so much growth right now in Pennsylvania, New York, Maryland, Delaware, Virginia is getting ready to have a new program come online, North Carolina, South Carolina. So I'm just really have a hyper focus in these areas, and I've been spending a lot of time in New Jersey. I'll be there again tomorrow night meeting with the county council, and it's interesting. I feel so blessed to be in Maryland. I really do. I really just the level of providers that we have in here, the cultivators, the experts,
There's a
the
lot.
lab testing, the products that we have. We have a very, very strong medical program in
yeah.
Maryland, arguably the best in the nation.
For being a state that's not even rec legal, or like not even really seeing anything like that coming too soon, it's like we do have a much bigger like system of professionals.
If you're a patient like Connor and you're looking to seek high quality individuals for treatment, you can go find a Dr. Paloma or Nurse Laura or Dr. Hoffman at PAH. But in New Jersey and some of these other states, like it's
almost impossible. You don't really find that level of professionality or experience. Even experience is a very big thing. Experience is obviously probably number one thing.
And I'm doing the work out there, and I got to hear a medical cannabis dispensary that's getting ready to open, and like they were clueless about cannabis as a medicine. I mean, it was wild. It was really interesting to hear someone who had a license like that, not because the application process, everything was so much different out there. Like for Maryland, we wrote our own application, so we learned everything before we actually started doing it, and then we had so much time because it was such a slow process, it required so much patience that by the time we actually opened our doors, we were pretty prepared. But some of these folks in other states, it's almost like, you know, they like watched like a couple episodes of Weeds on Showtime and they think they can just like figure out like how to run a dispensary. It's wild.
Some people might hate me for saying this, but like not everybody who gets a med card is doing it, you know, medicinally. Not everybody who opens a dispensary is doing it with medical intent, which is like whatever. But at the same time, it is important if you're opening a dispensary, at least understand those things.
Yeah, I had a friend from high school, actually Pasadena, and she's 39 years old and diagnosed with MS. Not great, to be told. And I sent her to a dispensary in Annapolis, and she was asking about microdosing, and they laughed at her like when she asked about microdosing because
it's not something that like in they don't know it.
And I was like, wow, like how intimidating as a patient to be scared of cannabis and then walk into some place and then use the right term and to have someone laugh at you and feel like that, and just like
it's
like I came back and told my staff like I'll kill someone if they ever treat a patient like that. Like that's not what we do here. And now that I don't know if you guys know this, but we have our second dispensary now in Silver Spring that we're working with. We're getting ready to do a full rebrand over there. Wow. And they've just never had a medical focus there.
Yeah.
And I'm excited because there's a big question of is like, can you be as successful as you are in Salisbury with a medical focus in a really heavy market like Silver Spring?
Well, this place is
doing
good. This place is awesome.
I don't see why, you know, I believe we will be, and we're going to get a chance to go prove our model out there. But, you know, to your point, not all the patients in this program are really interested in cannabis as a medicine. Some of them are looking for illegal use. Some of them have all kinds of motives. And not all dispensaries are created equal when it comes to medical. You can tell by a lot of times someone's advertising or what they're putting out there, you know, where their real focus is. And I'm proud that we've been able to build a solid business and take care of patients and not have to compromise one or the other, and prove that, you know, they don't have to be mutually exclusive, that you can do both. You can serve patients and run a big, you know, a business that grows and can expand. So it's been interesting. So you got on the high side is in 4 stores. You got a big billboard coming at the new raceway. That's going to be super exciting.
You can also buy our merch online on thehighside.com.
Awesome.
I had to plug that.
No, and you can see it on thehighside.com. We have t-shirts, hats. What else you guys got?
Right now we're doing t-shirts, beanies, hoodies, long sleeve shirts, but I want to get into some other kind of avenues. I want to do socks. I think socks would be cool. There's a lot of things you could do with socks.
Yeah, I'm a big
Everybody
sock
wants
guy.
to buy socks.
I'm wearing like cannabis socks right now.
I'm wearing these. I got mushrooms on.
Solid. Which I think that's an exciting avenue to look at as well, and they're doing great work at the MAPS program at Hopkins, looking at mushrooms and microdosing and how those can be applicable to things like dementia and other things. And
Oh, yeah.
we know folks that are personally affiliated with that program, so it's interesting for me to continue to question what modern medicine has kind of come up with and said, okay, what commercial interests have skewed modern medicine and what is going on here? Because one of my drivers is seeing how sick my father was and seeing how many medications he was on and understanding the side effects from the 17 to 18 pills he was taking. And he was being sold a bill of goods that like, we'll just keep taking this pill and that pill and eventually like we'll get this right and like you're going to feel better. And oh, by the way, like don't worry about changing your diet or exercising or doing like any of the hard stuff. And I just look at where we're at and where we need to go, and the work that we're both doing in our own silos is so important to getting us there.
Allow me to make a counterpoint on something, because I keep hearing you bring up like modern medicine, and I feel like this is something that I want to kind of carry on into my message, is that like I want to stop seeing stuff like cannabis as alternative medicine. I want to start putting that into the spectrum of modern medicine. If you ever hear me talking about this kind of stuff, I don't ever use the term modern medicine, because I see cannabis as modern medicine. You know what I mean? To me, it's not an alternative. To me, it has been what has been saving my life for the past. I started using it in December 2018. However many years that is. It's the only reason I'm here. It's not, to me, it's not alternative. It is medicine.
I normally say traditional medicine,
Yeah.
which isn't even accurate as well, because cannabis is probably the most traditional medicines of all, right?
Oh yeah,
Being
no,
back in China.
it's been being cultivated since I think the 2000s BCs was the earliest they found it being cultivated and smoked by people in Middle East.
And China actually is the first. I give that presentation, Brandon, 1,000 times. To the best of my knowledge, it was like 4,000 BC, and it was the
BC.
first thing in the Chinese pharmacopoeia.
Really?
And it was the first. It was actually mandated to be grown as a settler in Jamestown. You had to grow hemp.
Really?
Yeah, you were required to grow hemp. Like every single person was required to grow hemp.
I did not know that one.
It's crazy. So I understand your point, and I want to make sure that I acknowledge that as well. It's not so much that I look at it as like a different medicine, but I understand how much.
No,
It's applied
yeah.
so differently to patients. It's crazy.
That's what I'm saying, is that like
It's never
I know.
prescribed. Like here's an indica tablet.
Well, yeah.
and-
So that's what I'm saying, is that the only reason why you're not calling it modern medicine in the circumstance is just because of probably the fact that it is treated so completely differently. Otherwise, if you could just go to a doctor's office and be like, "Hey doc, hit me with my prescription."
That was my vision, honestly. When this whole first happened, I went to my primary care doctor early and said, look, it's really important to me that primary care doctors in Salisbury participate in this program so that I don't just have to have a weed doctor. I don't want a weed doctor. I want
I want
a doctor,
Yeah.
that I'm open and honest with, that knows what I'm doing and knows that cannabis is a part of what my treatment plan. Like, I shouldn't have to go to this like specialized
A lot of people
area.
have to hide that from their doctors.
So many do.
I was very lucky that when I broke that news in quotations to my surgeons and my primary care team, they were very supportive and open of it. But I honestly think that was just because of the situation I was in. Where I weighed like 60, 70 pounds. I was very small, and I was like 14 years old. I was like dying. You know what I mean?
Right.
But unfortunately, it's not the same thing for a lot of people. Like, most people can't just tell their primary care, like their doctor or whatever, hey, I'm trying because a lot of people aren't usually in that kind of a situation. You know what I mean?
You've been put in situations that nobody would ever put themselves in, but you get this level of credibility, right? When you're that sick and you're like, yo, this is a medicine, all of a sudden like people seem to listen to you, and it's hard in some ways because you shouldn't have to be dying
For
At
anybody to
14
take it
for someone
seriously.
to justify using cannabis.
Yeah.
Right. But at the same time, if you're a person of faith, and I am, I believe that like people are put in different positions, and I feel like you've been put in this position because you've been such a good advocate, and unless you've lived that life, unless you were dying, unless you were in that very critical circumstance, you probably wouldn't have convinced them that this was like a tool, right?
We probably wouldn't have been able to tell them.
And maybe that was like, maybe this is all like part of the thing. But my primary care doctor, after telling me that he was that he appreciated me coming to him, being honest and transparent, he went on a spree where he wrote like 60 certifications. He's telling me, I'm writing all these certifications.
Wait, is it good or bad
And then-
spree?
A bad spree.
Uh-oh.
Because then he talked to his insurance provider, who told him that he wasn't basically that he was putting himself in jeopardy, and he canceled all 62 certifications in one day and just left a ton of people hanging.
Whoa,
and it was just like
what?
horrible experience. And I've never been back to this position since, and he has got a horrible reputation around town. But you're right, like, and I'm right in the fact that like.
See, but that ties back around to the stigma thing. Is that it's no different. Like people will completely. It doesn't matter who they are in your life if they hear you're doing something like that, even if it's for a completely medical reason. Doesn't matter how much or how little you're doing. They will cut every tie with you, or even from their own life. They'll cut ties from their own life. I'm sorry,
It's so
fumbled my words
wild.
there.
So
It's crazy.
now I'm back to going to a certifier who I only talk to really once a year when I get my certification, and that's it. Like it's so there's so much opportunity for a more symbiotic care, like a more synergy between providers and dispensaries. And I'll tell you this, I'm starting to see technology start to address some of these needs. I'm starting to see some platform solutions that are trying to connect hospitals and doctors and dispensaries so that everyone is talking, because there's not really a place. We implemented a practice management software here and tried a pilot program with a provider where we were trying to put together something that was going to allow us to share information back and forth with us and the provider and the pharmacy. Because that's the other piece of this as well, is we talk about modern medicine, traditional medicine. What I'm really meaning is basically pharmaceuticals versus a lot of natural homeopathic options. And the sorry, farm. It was me.
It wasn't bothering
There
me.
really needs to be a conversation happening with providers, patients, dispensaries, and the pharmacy, the pharmacists. One of the things I watched happen to my father was, heaven forbid, he went into the hospital and they changed his prescriptions, trying to get the prescriptions back the right way that they were, because
It's
there
a
was a
whole
cardiology.
mess. It's
You've
a
been
whole
this, right?
thing.
You've
Oh,
had
yeah.
you got a stomach doc, you got a this doc and a that doc and a blood doc, and all these docs are poking and prodding and putting different pills in you. It becomes crazy.
For a while, it was like I couldn't keep up with like the names of all my doctors. I still can't. I still don't keep up with all the names. I know some of them. I know the ones that I see more than the other ones.
Sure. I don't. Yeah, I can only imagine, man. Anything else you wanna get out before we invite you back in a couple months?
I just same message as I put out earlier. Is just like you got to keep fighting. Show up to local rallies. Show up to if you're willing to take a drive. Make a day trip out of it. Go to a rally far away. Just be a voice. You know what I mean? Just be something. Fight. Be an activist. Doesn't matter. Every voice counts. Every voice matters in the movement.
Check out Connor on Facebook, Instagram, ConnorSheffieldFoundation.com. Always a pleasure having you on, man. You're wise beyond your years. I appreciate having
Thank
you
you.
on. Thank you.
I'll be happy to come back on some other time. Invite me back on.
Awesome.
I love this stuff.
Sounds great.